Good evening. For the next 60 minutes, we're going to rock and roll and soothe your souls acoustically. Hit it, boys.
So, how do we work this?
Well, good evening, everybody. As I move back and forth along the shelves, my hairline makes its own decisions, and I think there's no better metaphor about what life is. But I'm here with the great Bob Miles. Everybody, say hello to Bob Miles.
I'm trying to say hello to Bob Miles. Now, I used to be Bob Miles. Maybe I'm still Bob Miles. I don't know. They call me Smokey around here.
Oh, all right. Now, was this something that changed as you crossed the continental divide from Brooklyn?
No, I had a vision many years ago that made me Smokey Night Rider. And then I became Bob again. And then when I came out here, when I was explaining to you, Marty, I played in San Francisco. I did a show called Dylan Words of Music, where there I was, Bob Miles, playing Bob Dylan. I got all bobbed out. I came to LA. And they said, "What's your name?" I said, "Smokey," and it stuck. So then I had a TV show called the Smokey Miles Music Hour, and I did many records like that, as Bob Smokey, and then just Smokey.
When I met you, it was at the beginning of this year. This year seems like it's 10 years, 10 years long. But I
Maybe
met you
100. I mean,
at
it's
the
been a while.
yeah at the Elvis retrospective, and you were playing a completely different character. You were Count Smokula.
That's right, but don't tell anybody. But that's okay.
Oh, all right. I
Oh,
didn't want
they
to.
know. They know now. They know.
And then later on, you gave a Facebook concert, and it was a completely different character. So I think it's going to be that incarnation who's going to be playing a couple of songs later.
I think so. Yeah. Well, I've been an artist, all my life. I just started making pictures when I was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 or something, filling up paper towel pads with pictures. And then I started graffitiing the basement in my parents' house. I'd make pictures on the walls, but they weren't angry because they were good pictures. And in fact, in my mom's house, and God bless her, she's 90, going to be 95, there's still some of my art in the basement walls. I just drew them there. I mean, Brooklyn kind of, when you have a couple of bucks, I don't know what a house was then, maybe $10,000, I don't know. But, they moved out of Brooklyn. That's what people did when they could escape the urban jungle, you know, moved to suburbia.
So somewhere out on Long Island. What
Yeah,
town? Because all I know is Amityville.
oh, that's because of the horror.
Yeah.
Oh, no, well, originally it was Franklin Square. And then we moved to San Diego, California for 1 year when I was about 10, 11. And then moved back to the next town from Franklin Square called West Hempstead, which is, it's a good name. It's got hemp in it.
Were you an artist before you were a musician?
Um, well, I would say it was about the same time. I mean, uh, I started doing all these things. I had a zither when I was a real little kid, which I could never, it's like an auto harp, but it had no little buttons. So I kept trying to write songs on the zither. I remember that, my frustration at not figuring out this zither and what it did and why I couldn't make like real music like I wanted to. But then uh, when I was about, I don't know, maybe, I don't remember if it was 5 or 7 or something like that. Well, I had a brother I had 2 brothers. They got born. I don't remember for which, but my folks, in order to keep me feeling, maybe better about the fact that now I had to share my kingdom with another entity, they got me a plastic Gene Autry guitar, which had little things that you would push and you could make the chords. So now I'm a singing cowboy, and that's what I wanted to be, a singing cowboy.
Used to spend my time kicking stones down alleys where the sun never shines, or dreaming up a rainbow that never did appear, and left me stranded here, so far yet so near, drowning in the tears of isolation. The days passed me by like a string of photographs I never could connect. No sense could I detect, or cause did I suspect, but desolation. Then I met a blind street singer singing out his song. He showed me how to make right out of wrong. He sang, listen to your heart. It'll tell you stories, sing your songs, write your poems. And if that's not enough, listen to your heart. It'll teach you how to love. It was a cold winter's day. On the streets of New York City, people hurried quickly by, looking fine and pretty, each one going their own way. Like any other day, just stay out of my way, keep your distance. Looking lonely and forlorn, if you stop to think about it, like stone walls walking tall. There was no doubt about it, and I too was the same. And there was no one to blame, for it's a hard and a heavy game to put up resistance. I met a blind street singer singing out his song. He showed me how to make right out of wrong. He sang, listen to your heart. It'll tell you stories, sing your songs, write your poems. And if that's not enough, listen to your heart. It'll teach you how to love. Relationships before, they've been so confusing. Wires got crossed, love got lost. The common ground was lacking, and though we stood up tall, it seemed written on the wall. One of us had to fall and the other stumble. But you can't give up hope. For where there's life, there's changing, and if you feel love is real, your dreams will be far-ranging, and we'll learn what to do to make them all come true. For it's up to me and you to make the old ways crumble. I met a blind street singer singing out his song. He showed me how to make right out of wrong. He sang, listen to your heart. It'll tell you stories, sing your songs, write your poems. And if that's not enough, listen to your heart. It'll teach you how to love. Listen to your heart, it'll teach you how to love.
So I played that for a while, but then I saw a kid. I went to summer camp, and I saw a kid. Now I had to have been about 7, I would think. I saw a kid playing an accordion, and there were all these kids listening. And I'm going, wow, he's playing the accordion. The kids are listening. It's portable. You mean, and I'm thinking, I remember being 7 and thinking, oh, if I went on the road and toured and I played the piano, I'd need a Steinway grand piano, big grand piano, and that's too heavy to schlep around. I'm sticking with the accordion. So I begged my folks, give me accordion lessons. And they go, that's not a serious instrument. You got to learn the piano. I said, oh, please, let me learn the accordion, and then I'll learn the piano. So they said, okay. They got me a few accordion lessons, not very many. And then I kept saying, what about the piano? But they never got a piano.
So a couple of lessons on the accordion. I'm still wondering how you got that zither.
I mean, I was really too young to remember where it came from. I just remember one day there was a zither.
that should be the autobiography title. One day,
right?
zither.
I was so frustrated by that zither. But so when I had the opportunity to get an auto harp, I did. I said,
Yep.
man, and that's a nice instrument. It's beautiful, beautiful auto harp.
So you were playing a lot of these instruments at a very young age, and you had no formal instruction on the guitar. Did you do that 10,000 hours that everybody talks about?
Well, okay, I started playing, and I always wanted to have a band, so I always started putting bands together. And at first, I had the accordion band. We had 3 guys. I had my next door neighbor played the accordion, and a buddy who lived on the across the big street. I don't know. We grew up, and I said, "Listen, guys, we're going to rival the Beatles. See, they're like the Beat all. We're going to be the surgeons, like Surge On, right? Because we all were going to be doctors at that time." So I would get them together and like force them to practice. But after a while, it became obvious they weren't that interested. And I stopped around that time. I said, you know, this is not a hip instrument. The only one I could find playing the accordion was Gary Lewis.
Yeah.
Gary Lewis's son from the Playboy. Gary Lewis and the Playboy. They had a song called "This Diamond Ring Doesn't Shine for Me Anymore." This diamond ring, right?
Yeah.
So I remember somehow there was an accordion in the band. I thought, okay, we can make accordion, make it rock, right? Because I was, by this time, I think it had happened that one night I was going to sleep and I heard a noise. It was like a deafening roar coming from the next room. And I went in there. My mom was ironing some shirts, and there was a black and white TV. And my God, it was Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I freaked out. And in my mind, I'm going to do that. So the next thing, I'm playing the guitar, and I put together, we were doing like folk songs like Tom Dooley and all this stuff. And then in junior high, we had a jug band, and that was the best, right? That got me through junior high. So like we called ourselves, we needed a name, and my mom, I said, we need some name, and we don't know a name. She goes, I don't know why. She said, Ecdesiast. So what the heck is Ecdesiast? It's a Latin word, a Latin name. It means you take off from something from the. It means a strip teaser. So we call ourselves, out of the blue, the Ecdesiastic Disciples of Ignatius Loyola. The only reason was we liked the sound of the name, Ignatius Loyola. So we entered the high school talent show. I mean, this was a funky jug band with a washed up bass and a washboard. I played the guitar. We had a kazoo. And my friend Ricky had a perfectly tuned set of glasses that he got out of his parents' cabinet, and he put water in it and then play the Man on the Flying Trapeze on the glasses. We're entering the high school talent show, and the principal said, "You can't use that name, Ignatius Loyola. It'll offend some Catholic students." We didn't think about that. I mean, it had nothing to do. So he said, "All right, we'll change the name." And we ended up changing it to the Ecclesiastic Disciples of Robert Zimmerman, who's Bob Dylan. So, we we entered the talent show. It was in the auditorium in the high school at this point. And there was another band there called Alessi. I don't know if you heard of them. They became big stars in England later on. They had long hair and they played with Marshall amplifiers, gigantic amps, and they're loud, and it was real rock. And we come on with these dopey instruments, the wash, boom, 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 and we're doing, Babyface and Man on the Flying Trapeze and Jim Queskin songs. And while we're playing, I feel boom, 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 and it hurts. It really hurts. I look at the floor, the curtain closed, we look at the floor, there's hundreds of pennies that the kids had thrown at us. Hundreds. I said, well, we're making money in this business. I'll stick to it.
Well, you were ecdysiasts.
Yeah.
So nobody had a problem with ecdysiasts. They just had a problem with Ignatius Loyola.
That's right. That's right.
Did you ever, in your storied career, did you ever play for actual ecdysiasts?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? I was in the burlesque world for many years. When later on, when I came to LA, well, as I mentioned, everything fell through, and I started doing acoustic music cable TV shows, right? Called the Smokey Miles Music Hour. We're always short about 3 minutes. It was an hour. I did an hour live every week with great people, really wonderful musicians in LA, both known and up and coming. It was just extraordinary amount of fun. But we're always short about 3 minutes of material. Phil an hour, didn't have commercials. We had PSAs and all this. So I started to do comedy and create characters and do them. And then around Halloween, this was about 1989, the director, Bruce Germain, he said, "Why don't you do something Halloween-y, for Halloween?" And I said, "I don't know a thing about Halloween." I mean, I knew Halloween. I liked Halloween. I always liked the spectacle. And, I went in a coma for like 3 days. I just went, what am I going to do for Halloween? Smokula. Count Dragus, Count Smokula. And the character got born. And I did the show. It's on YouTube, actually, the very first Count Smokula.
Oh.
And in fact, they're all up. I put most of the shows up. So anyway, I thought this guy will make a great talk show host. And that's what it was a talk show host.
Public access in New York and LA was, a strange bird. And it was so popular in the 80s and 90s.
It was, at that time, it was the last bastion of American individuality on media. I mean, now YouTube is really the same thing, only much, much greater, But the nice thing about public access was you had a wonderful studio, a bunch of cameras, and some great volunteers. You know, there were people on sound and people on cameras, and some were learning and some were pros that just wanted to keep in it. You know, New York was the first time I was on public access. I went on a show singing as myself because I wasn't Smokula on Sid Bernstein's show. Sid Bernstein is he's the man who brought the Beatles to Shea Stadium. Oh, so as Count Smokula, I got invited to a major burlesque show. And then the next thing, I was doing burlesque shows. I went on a tour, a couple of tours in Canada and the US, and did lots of them out here. So when you ask me about Ecdesias, yeah,
Yeah.
somehow. And they were wonderful. And then, you know, of course, I wrote the song about Dita von Teese, which is on one of the Count Smokula albums.
What a national treasure Dita von Teese is.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, she's amazing. Well, the thing is, she came up to me at one point and she said, you know, my boyfriend, he's crazy about you, you know, and he has a big job and a role in his show for you. That was Marilyn Manson she was talking about. So actually, I kind of knew that because I heard through a friend that he liked what I was doing, my TV show and stuff, that he'd watched all the episodes and taped them and whatever. And then at that first burlesque show I ever went to, he was up there on the balcony. So they told me, go upstairs. And I'm all dressed up as a vampire. And they tell me, you know, go see, Manson wants to see you. So I start going, the security guard stops me and they go, no, he wants to see him. And he looked up, he was so cute. He like a kid. He says, Count Smokula, I really love your show. Yeah, we were talking for a while. But somehow I haven't worked with him. I think he's a great artist.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I'm a blues, folky, acoustic songwriter, right? And then I became a vampire in the burlesque world. You know, I was really heavily doing a lot of burlesque. And then I got involved with Troma films. I don't
Oh,
know.
really?
Yeah. You know Troma?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a lot of music for their movies. I was in a few. I'm still working with them. In fact, I wrote a song. I recorded it yesterday called 50 Years of Uncle Lloydie, 47 Years of Troma. And they're making a music video out of it.
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. I did all the music for a movie called, I went to Cannes with them, the Cannes Film Festival in the year 2000. See, this is a fun story. So I was working a night shift editing ads for the LA Times. And I decided one morning, I'll go in there, and I didn't have to just crash because I was up all night.
Right.
Knock on the door. I go, hey, here's my literature. I'm Count Smokula. And the next day they call me. They go, okay, we have a contract for you. So we would do these shows with like semi-clad women. You know, it's the most famous body double in the world. Shelley Michelle was my co-host. They couldn't edit it fast enough. I mean, they would send the footage back to New York. A week later, they come up with a small clip, and a 4-minute clip. It would take 4 hours to download it. Well, that didn't work. But what was happening was around that time, they said, oh, we're doing the AFM. Could I put something together for the American film market at the Lowe's Hotel in Santa Monica? So I put together with all our freak show stuff and the girls and musicians. And we're right in front of the Lowe's Hotel. And then we go marching through the lobby with the accordion and the girls jiggling their everything's. And this was so exciting that they banned us from the hotel from ever doing that stuff again. But Lloyd Kaufman, the head of Troma, saw it and he says, I'm taking you to Cannes. So I went with with Lloyd and Troma and had the best time of my life. It was amazing. So yeah, then there was a thing. It was a competition, 10 directors 10 days, make I think it was like a 10 or 12-hour film in real time. So, and this is 2000, so it was like still this stuff is developing, right? So these Europeans, they had computers, laptops on their chests like this, cameras on their heads, and they would follow us around, and Lloyd directed it, and he's so brilliant. Lloyd is amazing. So we started early in the morning, and he'd go like, okay, you guys are having breakfast, and they'd go diving in the garbage can, and I'd start playing some song I made up on the spot about having breakfast. We're hungry, we're so hungry, and everybody starts singing like they know the words, like it's like Marat Sad or something. And then they get naked, and by the end of the day, everybody's jumping in the Mediterranean Sea, including Lloyd in his suit, and they have a blood machine, and they're spurting it everywhere, gigantic spurts of fake blood. And they made that into All the Love You Can, which is just a great documentary about how a low-budget company like Troma makes deals in Cannes Film Festival.
I looked out my window, the clouds were hanging low. That twisted, tortured landscape was like a painting by Van Gogh. The seagulls flew in spirals with a strange eerie din. They disappeared and you could hear every change in the wind. While we're waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. And the sea begins a raging, the ground starts to rock. All doors are flung wide open, they're unhinged at the lock. The shepherd brings his sheep to shelter, each creature seeks its twin. But the sky's so dark and cloudy now you can't see anything. While we're waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. By the moonlit windswept lighthouse, it's like a silent movie in the rain. Harlequins and jesters juggle bullets on the plain. The hermit's on the mountain watching the craggy earth in spin. His lantern is a signal to let the lost and homeless in. While we're waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. In the caverns of the city, prophets scribble on the walls, sing elegies in the hallways where the drunken legions crawl. Outside near the street lamp faces of old gamblers grin. Underneath frozen awnings, old friends say, where have you been? We've been waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. Some of them search for fortune, some are looking for fame. Some build their reputation, and some preserve their name. Some are lost in madness, some wallow in their sins. You can watch them from the tower every time the day grows dim. While we're waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. down the stream. The sun casts off neon sparks, the barges cough out steam. There's a sudden shift in the weather, and the river swirls and spins. The oarsmen gather to the center to hold their strength back in. And I wait for the hurricane, wait for the hurricane, wait for the hurricane to begin. They built a highway in Babylon they call the road of the kings. Highwaymen go riding by with the devils on their wings. In the forest of no return, in a fire lit in, 3 pilgrims have found shelter from the fierce pounding wind. While they're waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. Waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin. Waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane, waiting for the hurricane to begin.
Those songs from that whole album was produced by Mr. Otis Blackwell
of Elvis fame.
Otis wrote Elvis's biggest hits: "Don't Be Cruel," "All Shook Up." He wrote for Jerry Lee Lewis "Great Balls of Fire," "Fever" for Peggy Lee, "Handyman," James Taylor. I mean, one of the absolute great songwriters in rock and roll history. Man, Robbie Robertson from the band says is his favorite writer. And even Bob Dylan's impressed by Otis. He was a wonderful guy. I knew Otis back in New York. I just went to his office. There was a big picture of Elvis, behind his desk. And we became friends. And when I moved out here, I called, and I was doing my cable show. I called Otis and I said, "Hey, would you mind coming on my public access cable show?" And he said, "Of course, I'll be happy to." And we backed him up, acoustic. He says that was the first time he ever did stuff acoustic, and it was great. And then after the show, I said, "I just made a couple of demos of some songs. Would you like to hear them?" He says, "Of course." I played it for him. He says, I didn't hear those before. "Yeah, I'll give you a ticket. We'll go to Nashville and make an album. I'll produce an album." And that's how I finally got a record deal,
It's probably reaching to say that you've led a charmed life, but over the past half hour of this interview, as various people have woven in and out of your life, and there's already been a couple of stories of you having just on a whim knocked on somebody's door and made something happen. It's pretty inspiring.
Some things you make yourself, and other things just weirdly happen. I mean, I could tell you the weirdest, I don't know if I did, but if you want to hear it,
I want to hear something even weirder.
Okay, so you're good at this, Marty. I don't know. You're very personable. I'm talking. I usually don't talk so much, but between you and the Slivovitz.
Oh, the Slivovitz.
My mom had just learned Lamaze natural childbirth to teach it. She was a nurse. And she put an ad in the paper with the landlady of the it was an estate. They rented a little cabin with a pool, and it was nice. So they put in an ad. They split. I remember it was $1 for the whole ad in the Woodstock local paper. So my mom spent 50 cents on Lamaze natural childbirth lessons, and the other lady spent 50 cents to teach bridge, give bridge lessons. And the only person ever called was a woman named Sarah Dillon. So well, like, the truth is, you know, you heard my story about the jug band. I mean, the Ecclesiastic Disciples of Robert Zimmerman. If there was anybody in the world I wanted to meet, it was Bob Dylan. And now my mother, you know, my brother picks it up, says, hey, Ma, some woman named Sarah Dillon is on the phone. My mom she writes it down, Dillon. And we're freaking out. You know, this is pretty exciting. She says, well, you know, you got to come with your husband, and he's got to take the lessons too. And my brothers and I are just starting to scream and carry on. You know, we know who's coming on Tuesday. And she hangs up the phone. She says, what's the matter? I finally got a student, you know. We go, Ma, you know who that is? She says, I don't know, some woman named Sarah Dillon. Ma, think. Sarah Dillon, I don't. Dillon, come on, Ma, you know who that is. And then she went, oh my goodness. So she said, all right, if you guys behave, she'll introduce us, you know. So after the lesson, she introduced us, and I had all these Bob Dylan records in the cabin. And I think he got a kick out of that. And we, you know, we talked and whatnot. And well, it was funny at the lesson. My mom said to them, she says, well, you know, you have to help your wife in these childbirth lessons. And Bob goes, well, you know, the men in my family traditionally don't attend the birth of their children. And my mother looks at him, she goes, well, you know, Bob, the times they are changing.
Until this thread has gone away, we gotta learn to be stern and keep social distance. It keeps traveling around the earth. It don't care about anybody's net worth. Now's the time for us to practice coexistence. Unfortunately, for me and you, and for everybody out here too, we all got to practice social distance. Social distance is the phrase that'll get us through these days of weirdness, when hardly anything does inspire us. It's an invisible thing. Look how much misery it brings. This lousy, stinking, deadly coronavirus. Express our humanity. In the meantime, it's just gonna be social distance.
She nods, he nods. And then the next summer, you know, they came over a few times and went swimming and whatnot. And the next summer I called him up, and I had a job in the local place. I was washing dishes. And it was getting weird because the other guy was washing dishes with hallucinating all the time on LSD and looking at the grease. And here I am, I'm like just a kid, you know, 17, 18. And these guys, they're more experienced. And the head dishwasher had no teeth and was like, looked like he was going to kill me all the time. Although it turned out he was a well-known folk singer. He had to leave and do folk shows. But that was Woodstock at this time. And then, so I called Bob, and then he called me back. He said, come over to the house, you know. And he says, hey, we're going to England. They want us to go to Isle of Wight in England. And he says, if we go, you know, they paid him a lot of money at that time, play the Isle of Wight. He says, would you stay in my house? So I did.
Did you take good care of it?
I did my best. I mean, I tried to do a little work around there, like painting a door or something. But it was a big house, you know, it's really big. And it was up a mountain road. So it's kind of far from the main road, but people would come. It was weird.
Oh.
You know, I understood what he went through because, all right, so the kitchen was in the back facing, there was a pool back there in the backyard and it had gigantic windows with no curtains on them. So you'd be sitting there eating your breakfast cereal and there'd be all these like faces, bearded, long beard faces staring in at the window. And you're isolated, you know. So, and then I met one time, knock on the door, and a guy goes, hey, I'm John the Baptist. Here's my guitar. I'll be back in a few days. You know, today you'd think, oh my God, it's a bomb, you know, but, and then Jesus Christ came up. You know, hey, I'm Jesus. It's Bob here. You know, it was weird. There was one guy who wouldn't leave. He said, I'm here. I'm from Australia. I came from Australia, I think. So I'm not leaving until Bob comes out. She's not here. He said, I'm not leaving. Luckily, my dad drove up at the time, told him, get out of here, because it looked scary. It was around the time Manson was doing horrible things out here. So, you know, the fame, it's not that easy. You know, I could see that. Yeah.
Wow. And you're 17 or so.
How old was I then? 18 at that time. Yeah. Well, Bob was only 28, you know, when I met him, 27, and he was like the most famous musician in America, I think. You know?
And was Sarah, as described, a Scorpio Sphinx in a calico dress?
I mean, that's poetic. I found her to be a absolutely wonderful. I mean, very, very sweet, charming, beautiful woman. And I used to go over to their house in New York after that, you know, and stay over and stuff. And they were always really nice to me. In fact, one time I said, Bob, you know, I stayed there for the weekend. We went to the circus and the whole deal, and with the kids, you know, and I kind of summoned up the courage to say, you know, I wrote some songs. He said, well, I don't have time, but play me one. I got to go somewhere. So I played him one. He goes, that's good. Play me another one. And I played another one. He goes, that's good. Play me another one. And then he pulled out a guitar and he starts, what's that chord? I'm going, what? I'm showing Bob Dylan a chord. But he showed me just by playing some amazing things without showing me, but just doing it. I just learned amazing things. I mean, the guy's amazing. So we ended up playing for hours, you know, and then he tried to further my career. He tried to get me into the bitter end that night, but they were closed. And I, like a moron, I didn't follow it. I didn't want to bug him, you know. But, you know, years later, I mean, there's a lot more. But I don't want to get into it now. I ended up about, what was it, 10, 11, 12 years ago, I ended up playing accordion on his music video. And he didn't know, you know, is the Christmas video, did you see that one? Yeah, I'm playing the accordion. That was the funny thing. I get a notice they want an accordion player. So, okay, I play accordion. What color, you know? All right, send pictures of all your accordions. So I ended up, they said, oh, I'll bring a black one and a red one. Okay, I schlep them both. And I go, by the way, who's the artist? And they go, oh, you didn't know? It's Bob Dylan. I go, is he going to be there? I go, they go, yeah, he'll be there. I see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. So I get there. The band consists of me and the drummer, right? From Venice Beach, they got us. And I hadn't heard the song before. It's a playback kind of thing. I'm not playing on it. But I'm listening intently to try to make my fingers look good, you know, like they're playing the song. And then I hear, we're taking one. And I look up and there's Bob with his back to me. He hadn't even looked at the band. So we do the take and they say, that's it. Okay, that take is over. Bob walks to the other side of the room. All the girls are, you know, want to know. And I go up, I go, Bob. And he goes, nice to meet you. And I go, what do you mean, nice to meet me? I'm Bob Miles. His eyes bug out. He goes, Bob Miles, you've changed. And we hug. I said, so have you. And we hug each other, right? And then all day long, he's coming up to me and he just keeps going like this to my chest with a big grin. It was so sweet. And then we end up taking a break. You know, they had to change the battery of the camera or whatever. And Bob starts, we just start jamming. And then we take another break and we end up, it was like this old kind of colonial house in the Adams district, you know, broken down house, but with a nice, what do you call it? Terrace, porch?
Okay.
Porch.
Yeah.
We both land there about the same time. And we end up doing a whole concert for the cast and crew, just me on the accordion and Bob and I singing. He would do everything, but wouldn't do any Bob Dylan song. We did Hank Williams. We did Jimmy Rogers. I got him to yodel finally. It took me about 30 years to get him to yodel. Everly Brothers. I mean, we had such a great time. And then we went out in the street and did some Christmas songs. You should see this video. It must be Santa.
Is there a video of this porch concert?
No, they didn't let anybody, you know, use their cell phones. You know that. But okay, so his manager was there and he told the director, he says, Bob hasn't jammed like this with anybody for years, right? And he was like, and Bob came in kind of surly, you know, being a rock star, you know,
right.
You got to stay away from him. After he was all cool, the director was thrilled with him, right? And he said, and he told me it was because of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Smokey Miles live.
Good evening. For the next 60 minutes, we're going to rock and roll and soothe your souls acoustically. Hit it, boys.